All right. So last week we looked at the 10 principles of economics. Today we are looking at thinking like an economist. Okay, thinking like an economist. Now we see economists as scientists. Okay, why do we see them as being scientists? Now, if you're an economist, these are the rules that the things that you do in the economy. When we see them as scientists, we are seeing them as such because they try to explain the world, how the world is. So at times, through economic research, we're able to understand how the world works. So that's how we say that they are scientists, and also they use the scientific method. I'm sure you know what the scientific method is. First, you have to observe a phenomenon, know what exactly is going on. If there's a problem, you fish it out, you gather data, you state your hypothesis, get the data, test the data, torture the data. If the data is able to support your hypothesis repeatedly, then you have a model, you have an economic model. So the method that they use to solve economic issues is scientific in nature, and that is why we call them scientists. And they also act as policy advisors. And when they are acting as policy advisors, what they do is that they try to improve how the world is. They try to improve how the economy is. So by being a scientist, you are able to know how the world is working, how it is. By being a policy advisor, you try to improve how the world works. So, how the economy works. So these are the basic rules that if you're a scientist, you need to participate or partake in just to contribute to the entire society. Okay, so we have a lot of theories that economists try to propound and then test. Okay, so if you're able to test it and then it supports your hypothesis, then there is a theory there which will try to explain how the world works. And after you've been able to do that, you can predict or give advice on how to improve upon the world. So those are the rules that we actively partake in. Now we have assumptions and models. You see that economics is a social science and it studies human beings and the entire world as a whole. So it will be very difficult to study the entire world together. Just as one, it will be very difficult. So whenever we try to study the world, we hold something called assumptions. They just try to simplify how the world is so that we can understand how the world works. But if we put the entire world together, assuming we want to know human behavior, and then we want to study all the human beings on earth, when and how are we going to do that? It is not even possible. So we hold assumptions so that we understand how the world works. Then from there, we can use it to predict what will actually happen in the real world. So let's look at this example. Economists study international trade. International trade is just exchange of goods and services between countries. Okay. Now, I doubt now there exists a country that doesn't engage in international trade. We all do engage in international trade. But if we want to study international, how can we study the trades that all the countries in the world are making? It is not possible. So what we'll do is that we'll hold an assumption. We'll assume that we have only two countries and we have only two goods. So how would these two countries trade these two goods? You see that here we are able to understand, we are able to work with just two countries and then just two goods. This is very, very unrealistic. When you come to the real world, we have a lot of countries, we have thousands of goods that we trade. Okay, but we cannot study them together as a whole. So what we do is that we need to hold assumptions, okay, so that it will be the world's reality will be broken down into smaller pieces. We study those pieces, then we use it to predict what can actually happen in the real world. So those are assumptions. Any economic model that you see will come with assumptions. So we will later look at some of those things. And then in economics, we have models, a lot of models. This is how, these are the reality that we live in is very, in some way, it's very difficult to even understand how the world works. But we use the model to give us, to represent this difficult and ununderstanding world in a simplified way. Okay, so like this international trade thing, we can build a model for international trade. When you come to the real world, it is not as simple as we see, but the model, we will try to put it in a simple way. Okay, in a simple way, so that we'll be able to study the economic issues concerning international trade. So we'll be meeting a lot of models in economics, a lot. And before we develop any model, we need to hold the assumptions so that we can work and easily understand what we want to do. Okay, so those are models and then assumptions. Let's look at our first economic model. We call it the circular flow diagram. Okay, now this diagram just shows us how factors of production, factor income, goods and services, and then payment of goods and services move between households and firms. Let me give you an overview. We are assuming an economy where we have only two economic agents, economic participants, households at one side and then the firms at the other side. We also have only two markets. One market for factors of production and the market for goods and services. You see that this is the model. But before we can develop the model, we need assumptions. These are the assumptions. First, we have only two economic participants, households and firms, just two. But you know, when you come to the real world, it's not like that. We have firms, we have households, we have the government, and then we have the open economy. International trade is also there, but then we just assume that we have just these two economic actors. Then we have two markets, markets for goods and services and the market for factors of production, which actually is not like that in the real world. When you come to the real world, we have market for a lot of things. We have market for a lot of things, but here we are just assuming that we have only two markets. So we want to look at how these two actors will go to these markets, sell whatever they have, and buy whatever they need. But before we can do this, we cannot consider all households in the world and all firms in the world. We just put assumptions about them. Now, in this model, we have a market for factors of production. When we talk about factors of production, we're talking about the resources that we use to produce the goods and services that we need. Okay, those are the resources. Economically, the factors of production are labor, land, capital, and at times you have entrepreneurship. Okay, so the market for this, we have market for factors of production. So in the model, we have a market for labor, for land, and then for capital. And we also have a market, another market where produced goods and services are traded. So in the model, the two actors, the two economic agents are firms and households. The households own all the factors of production. So they own the land, the labor, capital, all those things are owned by the household, and they give them out. They sell it to the firms for factor income. Okay, when you sell your labor service to the firm has to pay you wages. When you sell your land, it has to pay you rent. And then when you give your capital out, profit. You see, so the individuals or the households will give out these factors of production, and then the firms will buy them and give them factor income. Okay, and give them factor income. So now, after they receive this factor income, they also use this income to buy goods and services and consume them from the goods market. Okay, so that is the activity of the households. Then when you go to the firms too, the firms will go to the factor market where land, labor, and capital are being sold. They will buy them, okay, and pay the households the factor income. Then they will use the factors of production to produce goods and services. Then they will send these goods and services to the goods market to go and sell them. Then these people will go and buy and pay them. Then they will get revenue from the household. So you see what is happening here. This person will go and buy this from this and get income. Then he will use that income to go and buy another thing from the other person. Okay. Next semester, when you are doing macro, I'm sure you will talk much about this. So this is the diagram, the diagram showing or giving the visual view of the model. Okay, these are the two actors, the firms and then the households. These are the two markets for goods and services, and the markets for factors of production. Now the households, they will send the factors of production to the factor market. Then they will sell it to the firms as factors of production. The firms will use these factors of production to produce goods and services. They will send it to the goods market. Then they will sell it to the households. You see how the thing is. So the households will have to go there again, and then the whole thing will keep on. That's why we are saying it is circular. It keeps on happening. Now look at this one. When the households send the factors of production to the factor market, the firms will pay them wages, rent, and then profit. So it comes to the households as income. So it's this income that they will use, and they will spend it on the goods and services. So when the firms receive this income, they see it as revenue. So the revenue will come to the firms. Is this revenue that the firms will use again and go to the factor market to go and pay the wages, rent, and then the profit? The individuals will take it as income. You see, the thing will keep on will keep on happening. So this is a model. So now we've been able to understand that if you have an economy with just these two economic agents, this is how income and then goods and services and factors and factor income move through them. Okay, so we are able to do this, and then we use it to generalize what actually happens there. So there's just an example of a model. Okay, I hope you understand that. Hello, are we together?
Yes, please.
All right. Let's look at another model, the production possibility frontier. Now, the PPF is just a graph that is showing us the combinations of two goods that any economy can produce, given all the resources that they have with a given level of what? Technology. So if you take a country, you take their level of technology and then all the resources. When we bring all these things on board, then what are the combinations of the two goods that could be produced? So here too, let's look at this. We are talking about just two goods. Just two goods. This is an assumption. When you come to the world, there's no economy that produces only two goods. But here we are assuming that they are producing only two goods. So let's look at this example. The two goods that are being produced are computers and wheat. And then they use only one resource, labor. But when it comes to the real world, we don't use just one resource to produce goods and services, but it's just an assumption. And then the economy has 50,000 labor hours per month available for producing both computers and then wheat. Okay, so these are the assumptions. We have two goods, computers and wheat, just one resource, labor, and then there's the amount of labor in hours available to this economy per month. Okay, now let's continue. Before you can produce one computer, you need 100 hours of labor. Before you can produce 1 unit of computer, and before you can produce 1 ton of wheat, you need 10 hours of labor. And remember, the total number of hours available per month is 50,000. So let's look at this combinations of computers and then wheat. if you take combination A, okay, computers, just in the production of computer is using up the entire 50,000 hours of labor. This first column, this big column here is talking about the hours of labor. Okay. Now, if computers are using the 50,000 hours of labor, it means that there will be no hour of labor available for the production of wheat. Okay, we are using all the 50,000 for computers. So how many computers can we produce? Remember, we said we need 100 hours before we can produce one computer. So if we are using 50 hours to produce computers, it means we can produce 500 units of computers. I hope you understand that. 50,000 divided by 100. Are we together?
Yes, please.
And then because we are not using any hour for wheat, we cannot produce any unit of wheat. That's if we go for combination A. Good. Let's move on to combination B. B, we are using 40,000 hours for computers, which means I will be left with 10,000 for wheat. So how many units of computers can we produce? 40,000 over 100, which is 400. How many tons of wheat? 10,000 over 10, which is 1,000. So if we choose combination B, we can produce 400 units of computers and then 1,000 units of what? Wheat. Now, if you look at this, because we wanted to produce more wheat, you see that we had to reduce the units of computers that we used to produce. By producing 1,000 units of wheat, we had to sacrifice 100 units of computers. I hope you can see that.
Yes.
So you see, this is an opportunity cost. We call it a trade-off. Just a minute. Yeah, Baga. All right, so if you want to produce 1,000 units of wheat, you have to sacrifice 100 units of computers, right? So that's how the combinations work. Now, if you get to combination E, we are using all the 50,000 hours of labor for wheat. So there's none left for computers. So if we are using 50,000 for wheat, we will produce 5,000 tons of wheat without producing any unit of computer. So when we draw these combinations and we draw a line through it, that is where we get the PPF. Yes.
Please, for the B part, like if we use 10,000 hours for wheat, there's going to be 1,000 of wheat produced. But you said you divide it by 100.
No. The one that we see, they say that we need 100 hours of labor to produce one computer, but we need 10 hours of labor to produce 1 ton of wheat. So if we are using 10,000 hours for wheat, then we will produce 10,000 divided by 10 tons of wheat.
Okay.
So 10,000 divided by 10 is 1,000. And then 40,000, that one is computers, and we need 100 hours for one. So to get the quantity to be 40,000 divided by 100, that would be 400.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So if you come to E, for E, we are using 50,000 for wheat. So we'll produce 50,000 divided by 10. That will be 5,000 units of wheat and nothing for computers. Okay. So these are the combinations. So when we draw the horizontal axis is for computers, and then the vertical one is for wheat. So you just draw the various combinations. Combination E is 5,000 0. Combination A is 500 0. Then you draw you just dot the other ones, and then you draw a line through them. So this is the PPF, okay, for this particular economy. I hope you understand.
Yes, I do.
Now, let's do this exercise. It says that on the graph, we should find a point that represents 100 computers and then 3,000 tons of wheat and label it F. Would this be possible for the economy to produce? I mean, can the economy produce this combination? Why or why not? So this is what you have to do. 1,000. This is 1,000 of computers. Is it 100 or 1,000? 100.
100.
So here, computers 100, right? And then wheat is what? 3,000, right? So
3,000. Yes.
it's supposed to be this point here, right? So the question is that, is it possible for to produce this combination? The answer is yes. They can. Okay. Any combination below the PPF is attainable. The resources and then the given technology will be able to produce such a combination. So yes, it is possible. They can do that. Their resources will allow them to do that. And then the second one, we should find the points representing 300 computers and 3,500 tons of wheat and label that one G. So 300 computers here and then what 3,500 units of wheat. Let's do that. We'll have 3,500 here. Okay. Then we'll have 300 here. You see what is happening? You see that this one is outside the PPF. So this one is not attainable. The available resources now will not allow them to produce that point J because it is outside the PPF. Okay.
Okay.
So this is point F. Okay, they can produce it, but it is not efficient in that they are not using all their resources. They can still add up the idle resources and then produce more of both goods without actually sacrificing any other good. So point F is attainable, fine, but it isn't efficient. And then for point J, it is not possible to produce J. If you want to produce J, let's try and see how many hours would we need. How many hours? We are producing 300 units of computers, right? So, and then one is 100 hours. For computers, we need 100 hours. So that should give us 30,000 hours. I hope you understand that. Yeah, Portia.
Sorry.
Yeah, the thing logged you out there. I was saying that if you look at point J is not attainable. We cannot produce point J because the resources, which is the total number of hours that we have per month, wouldn't allow us to do that. What this means is that if we try to produce them, we'll be using more than 50,000 hours. So let's try and get the total number of hours. We are producing 300 units of computers and we need 100 hours for one. So how many hours would we need to produce this? That would be 30,000, right?
Yes.
And then let's look at the wheat, tons of wheat. We are producing 3,500 and we need 10 hours for one. So there we have for 35,000. 35,000. When we add 35,000 to 30,000, we are getting 65,000. But we only have 50,000. So we cannot produce point J. Is that okay?
Okay.
All right, so there's a summary of the PPF. Any point on the PPF, that's points A to B, they are possible and they are efficient. They are possible because the 50,000 hours of labor can produce those combinations. And also they are efficient because they are using all the resources that they have. They are using all the resources that they have. Now, any point under the PPF, like the point F that we saw, that one, it is possible to produce it, but then it is not efficient. It is not efficient because they are not using some of the resources that they have. The resources are being underutilized. So you have to use all so that the production will be efficient. But any point above the PPF, like point J, no, it is not possible to produce point J because the resources won't allow us to do that. Okay. All right. Our next move is to look at the economists as policy advisor. Okay. We have these statements in economics, positive statements and normative statements. The positive statements try to describe how the world is. Okay, what actually happens in the world. And then the normative statement is a value judgment. It tells us how we think the world should be. Okay, so if you are an economist and you are acting like a scientist, the statements that you'll be making will be positive statements because being a scientist, you describe how the world is. So maybe if you increase the price, remember last week we saw that example. If you increase the price of cigarettes, it will reduce
a number of things will be
smoking, right?
yeah.
Or if you increase income, there's going to be a reduction in the number of hours that people work. Those are positive statements, okay, because it can be tested and proven. After we have reduced, after we have increased the tax on the tobacco, we can gather data and know if it's going to reduce the tin smoking or not. So those ones are describing how the world is, how the world works. Those are positive statements. But then for the normative ones, those are how we feel, our personal opinions. We call them value judgment. You'll be doing critical thinking, okay? It's a course, a UGRC. They will teach you to do those things. Value judgments just express opinion. So how you want the world to be, okay? I think we should do this, we should do that. It's just a normative statement, a value judgment. For value judgments, you cannot test them and know whether they are true or not. It's my opinion. So how do you know if it's true or it is not true? Okay, so those are the two statements that we have in economics. So this thing, you really need to study about it. There's no way we can give you all the statements that they can ask you. So you have to know how to identify them, whether the statement is positive or normative. So let's look at these statements. Are they normative or positive? Let's look at the first one. Prices rise when the government increases the quantity of money. Is it normative or positive?
It's positive.
Why?
Prices rise when the government increases the quality of money. This means the money will be excess in the system.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens,
see, what you are saying is true. You want to say that when there is an increase in the quantity of money in the economy, we'll have more money chasing fewer goods. So the general price level will go up. This statement is true. Yes, it is positive. But if you think it from that point, not all positive statements are true. It can be false, but it will still be a positive statement. So what you are looking out for is that is the person expressing his opinion. If the person is expressing his opinion, then the thing is a normative one. If it is not an opinion, it's a positive one. So the first one, yes, it is, because this can even be proven, tested and proven. When there's an increase in the quantity of money, will it cause an increase in price? We can test this. But look at the B. The government should print less money. I mean, who are you to tell the government to do it? Can't you see there's a value judgment?
Yes, please.
You feel like we should print more money, less money. Maybe me too. I feel like we should print more money. So it's just a value judgment or a normative statement. Then a tax cut is needed to stimulate the economy. What do you think? Is it positive or normative?
It's positive.
Are you sure? I am telling you that tax cut is needed. I feel like it is needed. It's how I feel. Okay, I feel like the economy is not moving on well. So bring a tax cut so that the economy will go on. So it's like we should impose a tax cut so that the economy will be stimulated. So it's a value judgment. You are just expressing your feeling. We should. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
But look at the D. An increase in the price of Bluetooth will cause an increase in consumer demand for music downloads. This is a positive statement, but it might be false. This statement it doesn't mean that if the price of this goods should go up, then the demand for music should also go up. But it's a positive statement. The person is not expressing his feeling or his opinion. He's not saying that we should do something, or I think we have to do this, we need to do that, we want to do. No. This is a positive statement, but it is possible that economically this relationship wouldn't be true. It's possible this price will go about this, because it will depend on the relationship between the two groups. You understand? So as you said, the first one is a positive one. It is describing a relationship between the two, money and prices. The B is a normative statement, a value judgment. You cannot confirm it or not. And then the third one too was a value judgment. And then the D, that one too is describing a relationship between the two goods. Okay, a relationship between the two goods. But it doesn't mean that it has to be true. Okay, it doesn't mean the statement has to be true, but as soon as it's describing a relationship between two variables, then that is a positive statement. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. Okay, why economists disagree? Okay, there are cases where this economist will do this and then another person too will do that, but mostly it's because of the normative statements. There are things that you cannot disagree on, okay, especially the positive ones, the positive statements. But then when they are making propositions, I think we should do this. But another economist too might have a different opinion. When it happens like that, we have disagreements between economists. Okay, it normally happens because of the normative views that they have about policies. Maybe they want to enact a policy. One economic advisor will say that, oh, we should do it like this. Another one to say that we should do it like this. Those are their own opinions, and as a result, there can be disagreements. But the positive ones, there's no way you can disagree on them. Okay, you cannot disagree on them. All right, well, I'm sure you know what opportunity cost is. When you are obtaining an item, definitely you have sacrificed something before getting that item. So the one that you have sacrificed is what you call the opportunity cost. So we want to look at the relationship between the PPF and the opportunity cost. Okay. So as I stated earlier, if you want to produce more of wheat, you needed to sacrifice some units of what? Of computers. Okay. So with the PPF, as you are moving along the PPF, you'll be shifting resources from the production of one good to the other, which means that there's a trade-off there. If you want more of one good, you have to sacrifice the other. If you want less of one good, then you have to get more of the other good. Okay. So when you have the PPF, the slope of the PPF tells us the opportunity cost of one of the goods in terms of the other goods. So you want to produce more wheat, then what will be the quantity of computers that you have to sacrifice? That will be the opportunity cost there. Okay. So let's look at this. Let's look at how we calculate the opportunity cost. Okay. Now the slope of a line equals they are using the rise over the run. Okay. Now this is the rise. Okay. We use y, changing y over changing x, changing y over changing x. Okay. So now if you want to find the slope of this PPF, because it's a straight line, the slope will be the same throughout. But I'm sure you've seen PPFs that have a bow-shaped, some bow-shaped, and they are not always straight lines. It depends on the opportunity cost. If the opportunity cost is constant, then you will have a straight line. But if it's not constant, then it takes that from. We'll look at that shortly. Okay. All right. Now, if you look at this, if you want to calculate for the opportunity cost, which is the slope of this line, is the change in y divided by what? Change in x. Okay, so if we are moving from 0 computers to 100, then the change in computers here will be 100 minus 0, which is 100. And that of wheat would be what? From 500 to 400. So 400 minus 4,000 minus 5,000. That will give us minus 1,000. So minus 1,000 over 100 will give us minus. It's minus because of the shape of the PPF. You see that it's sloping downwards, which means that if you want more of one, you have to sacrifice the other. Okay. So here, what this means is that the opportunity cost of a computer is 4 tons of wheat. If you want to produce one computer, you have to sacrifice 10 tons of wheat before you can get an extra unit of computer. So you see the trade-off. You want more computers, you have to get less wheat. Okay, you have to get less wheat. So that's how we find the PPF. Okay, can you read this question?
In which country is the opportunity cost of cloth lower?
Good. Now you just need to use the PPF. I'm sure. Do you know something about the steepness of a curve?
No.
The steepness is talking about how the curve is standing or how it is lying down. So if you look at these two curves, you see that this one is standing more than this one.
Yeah.
This curve is steeper. This one is steeper than this. We use the slope of the curves to know whether this is steeper or not. And steeper curves have higher slopes or larger ones. Okay. So if you look at France here, the slope for this PPF is going to be very high, which means that the opportunity cost is high. Remember we said the opportunity cost is the slope, right? So the PPF of France is steep. To have a high opportunity cost, the slope. So in this question, it will be in England, right? They will have lower opportunity cost because the curve is less steeper. Okay. So that's what they are saying. That is that of England because its PPF is not as steep as France. So the steeper the curve, the higher the slope, and the higher the opportunity cost. Okay. Now, economic growth and the PPF. We can use movement in the PPF to measure economic growth. If the PPF shifts outwards, like this one, it is shifting from here to the red one. This shows economic growth. It's possible that we've gotten more productive resources, or there's an improvement in the level of technology. When it happens like this, the PPF will shift outside or outwards. When this happens, it means we can produce more of both goods, okay, without sacrificing anything. Or we can choose to produce more of one and then we won't even sacrifice the other. Let me show you what I mean. Now, I'm sure that this is one combination, right? 2,000 and then 300 units for computers. Now, if we are now moving on to this higher PPF because of maybe improvement in level of technology, this is what is going to happen. This is one possibility. And you see that here we are still producing 300 units of computers, but we are producing 3,000 units of what? Of wheat. You see that we are producing more of wheat without reducing the quantity of computers. But if we're supposed to be on the same PPF, then if we want to produce 3,000 units of wheat, we have to reduce the units of what? Computers. But because of maybe an increase in resources or improvement in technology, we can produce more of wheat without reducing the quantity of computers. We can also do it for computers, or it's even possible that we can now produce more of both goods. Assuming initially we were here, so 2,000 and then 300 units of computers. Now we can be here. You see that if you compare these 2 points, at this point we are producing more than 2,000 of wheat, and we are still producing more than 300 units of computers. I'm sure you can see that.
Yes, please.
So this is economic growth happens when there's increase in the resources or the level of technology. But then if there is a reduction or a retardation in economic growth, that one the PPF will shift inwards, okay, and it will just work in the opposite direction. All right, this is a PPF, the shape of the PPF, the one that I was talking about. It's possible to be a straight line or bow-shaped. Now, the shape depends on the opportunity cost. When you want to produce one good, what is the opportunity cost that you incur? If the opportunity cost is constant, if it's constant throughout, like the one that we saw, the PPF will be a straight line, okay? But if the opportunity cost rises as the economy tries to produce more of one good, the PPF will be bow-shaped, like this one, okay? I'm sure this is the type you saw, eh?
Yes.
So this we are producing beer and then mountain bikes. Okay, so as the economy shifts resources from beer to mountain bike, you see that here the curve at this side is steeper than this side. Can you see that?
Yes.
Like this one, even if we can do this to show that, draw a tangent. Okay, if you look at this, and then here to withdraw another tangent here, you will see that this tangent is steeper than this one. Even if we come to the top here, hey, this cannot be a tangent. Like this. You see that even this one is also steeper. So as you are at the top here, the curve is less steeper, which means that the opportunity cost here will be lower. But as you are moving down, the opportunity cost becomes higher. That is why it takes the bow shape. Okay. Now let's look at why it works like that. Now, assuming we are here, we are at this point A, it's like we are producing so much of beer than mountain bikes. So it's possible that even there are some people who are able to produce mountain bikes, but they are also producing beer. Okay, because it's like we don't want to produce a mountain bike. They also need to work. So they will all add their resources to the production of beer. Is that okay? So now, if we want to produce more mountain bikes, we don't need to sacrifice much beer because we have people who can produce mountain bikes here. So just bring them out, and then they will go and produce the mountain bikes without actually reducing the quantity of beer, because we still have people who have specialized in the production of beer, so they can still produce the beer. Okay, because initially we're having people who could actually produce mountain bike, but they are using their resources to help in the production of beer. So here it won't cost the economy much beer to produce more mountain bikes. But let's look at this point. By the time they get here, they are producing so much mountain bikes, which means that it's possible all those who could produce mountain bikes but were initially producing beer are now into the production of mountain bikes. So if you want to produce more, you have to go to those who produce beer and bring some of those who have specialized in the production of beer to come and produce the mountain bikes. So as we take people from the beer production, it will be reducing the quantity of beer that they produce. I mean, in higher quantities, which means that the cost of producing just one extra mountain bike here will be so high in terms of beer. I hope you understand the intuition.
Yes, please.
So that is why as you move down the PPM, the opportunity cost rises. Okay, the opportunity cost rises. All right, so the PPM becomes bullshit when different workers have different skills, different opportunity costs of producing one good in terms of the other. But then it becomes a straight line when we have the same opportunity costs throughout all the combinations. Okay, throughout the combination. So they can have a bowl shape, and then they can also have straight line shape. Okay. All right. This is where we will end today.